Yeah, but why do people want to make their life more like the world they're trying to escape from?
I watched Mozza the other day on his thing saying, I put my diesel heater away for the winter and I'm freezing.
Fucking diesel heater.
We're rolling. Cool.
Once we get going into this,
Dean,
are we going to
what's the score with that tattoo? Is that when you're having removed?
Right, do you want it? Okay, I'll let you.
It says Ronnie on it from here.
Right, so when I was
turn it to
abroad for the
spinner.
first time in Magaluf, I know it sounds shit already, doesn't it? I was 17, and it was about 2 in the morning, and I walked in and I was like, put Man United on my arm. So they did it, and the C, I rubbed it, and it looked like an R. So I got home, and everyone was like, Muffer. I was like, don't fuck. Muffer? That was it. And so I was like, yeah, I've got it zapped about 6 times.
That's your nickname now. I'm going to call you Muffer.
Muffer, that's it.
You need to
Yeah,
get
Muffer.
You need to have a cover up.
I know, it needs to be covered really now, doesn't it?
Get yourself
Yeah.
a Fox logo.
Have one of them, boy. That's what you
some
want.
sort of carpy cover up.
Yeah.
That's why I like a carp with teeth. Good.
Oh. All right, and guys, welcome back to the Always Carp Fishing podcast. I'm joined today by Lewis, Harry, Scott, and Chilly, and today we are discussing unpopular opinions, and there is lots of these in the actual fishing industry, as I'm sure you're aware. So I'm going to kick things off with Mr. Day. What is your unpopular opinion?
Oh, we didn't rehearse that. I was going first.
Oh, you're going first, mate.
Oh, no, you properly caught me off the hoof.
What gets your
Always
goat?
got an
What
excuse.
literally gets your goat?
And you've always got an answer. I nearly dropped it. Bombing that one. I guess rigs in general, but I'd probably start with the Fluoro D-rig is beep.
Really?
Did I say beep?
You think it's... You don't
The
rate
Fluoro, so the Fluoro D is shit.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
on what grounds?
Oh, that's my opinion. I didn't say I was going to explain it.
But what?
Well, yeah.
I know there's a lot of people watching this going.
Base that. Give us some background.
Can I not just quit now?
No, you told me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you told me about just last week, for example. You like Sean, who you were fishing with last
Oh, I
week.
didn't say. Oh no, now you're making me sound like I've told.
No, well,
Yeah.
you told me on the phone. Oh
changed
yeah,
his
he
opinion.
changed to the rig that I was using
You've been
because he
mugging
was using
Sean,
these and lost a
Sean
load
off
of fish.
behind his back, so now...
No,
No, come
he
on.
changed.
Now-
He changed. He changed his mind last week. Yeah,
Did he change to the ultimate rig, did he?
there is no ultimate rig chill.
Right.
Did he change from experiences on that week of losing fish, or just a hunch, or?
I'm not entirely sure. I just know that I had 15 bites, 15 fish. I didn't know whether I got picked up 25 times. I don't know. I didn't have a camera. I was old school in it. I was spodding and casting and everything.
No tech.
Thank you, Chill. I thought you'd like that. Yeah, I know I had 15 bites, 15 fish landed, pretty much all nailed. And I mean properly nailed as well.
And what rig were you favouring then on
No,
that?
I'm not telling you that. It wasn't a Fluoro D. No, I've got no secrets or anything. It was a little combi, multi, style with one of our long shank wide gapes. I'll talk about why I think that's good if you want in a minute. But he was using a Fluoro D on a couple of rods. Or he might have been using it on one. I can't remember now. And he had a couple of hook pulls, and we just got chatting. We just got chatting about it, and I just said, "Look, I've never liked them." And he was like, "Well, why? You know, you saw evidence that we did the Tom Maker underwater a couple of years ago, and loads of those fish got nailed on Fluoro Ds. But if you didn't have that visual evidence, to me, thinking about the rig mechanics, I want a hook and a bait separation.
Yeah.
I want some movement in the hook. Yeah, I want the hook to drop, turn, twist, whatever it may be. That's what we make liner liners for and flippers. It's all about pulling them on your hand. That's another thing I don't really agree. You pull it on your hand, it goes in, it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's not a fish's mouth, is it? But I think what it demonstrates is the movement of the hook. And I just think a Fluoro D doesn't allow a great deal of separation between hook and bait. And there's not much movement. And the stiffer the fluorocarbon, the less the hook's got to move. And you're relying on it going in a certain way and coming out a certain way. If you've got something that's got a little bit more movement in it, the hook can twist, move. I think you've got a much better chance of converting a pickup into.
So I think a lot with the D-rig, I don't use them, but I've seen enough people using them to.
You don't use them because they're shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't use them because I don't like how they sit. It doesn't feel right to me. I don't feel like mechanically it's a good rig.
Exactly.
However, so I've had 2 separate occasions where I've sat behind underwater cameras with people fishing with D-rigs, and one of them, which was when Tom was at Hookup with the other guys as well, and I think he did get spat out a couple of times, but not a lot. He hooked a lot of fish, and he was catching quite a lot of tench. They did get away with it a bit more, but even if you're catching the tench, I think you're doing well. Yep. But he fishes with a really long D-rig, which I think allows a lot more movement because the fluorocarbon is inherently stiff, whereas Sean fishes with quite a bit shorter, like sort of 6-7 inches, something like that.
I agree.
On a D-rig, and we filmed with him underwater in the winter, and the footage will eventually go out as part of the underwater film that we're going to be doing, hopefully in a few weeks' time. And he had one opportunity all week, and it spat him out. Like, didn't even feel like it was close to getting hooked.
The catchfish,
anything like that. The catchfish. But I'm sort of in agreement with you in the sense if you just tie up a D-rig and it's like a 5, 6, 7 inch one, and you're not really thinking about how much it's moving, I don't think it's catching. I think it needs to have the extra movement to allow the hook to sort of drop down or whatever it needs to do. And I think you either get that from a long hook link or have it like on a loop with a ring swivel, sort of no anti-tangle sleeve, that sort of thing, so that there's a lot more movement.
I haven't fished a lot with Sean for the last few years, and he's not really used them for. I suppose he used them on and off for quite a while, but you can't deny what he's caught over the last few years. The syndicate down the road, he's had some massive fish. I don't think he's exclusively used that rig, but on this occasion, he had at least one of them out. He had a couple of hook pulls, and he swat. So he said I couldn't ignore, the hook holds that you were getting. So, I think you've got the video evidence which shows him getting bites. But what you haven't got is if he had something different to that out there, would he have converted every single pickup? Right? I don't know. Would he have converted less? I don't know. If he got the same amount, does it make any difference in that respect? But for me, personally, I just think that the rig mechanics of a Fluoro D aren't as good as some other rigs that we can make. I want bait and I want separation, I want the hook, I want flexibility. Sorry, mate, the one thing I would say in terms of what you can see with evidence and stuff like that, years and years and years ago, I went to a syndicate where you could use a boat. Okay, and by that point, I'd probably been casting, feeling the lead, dragging the bottom for 20 years. Went to this syndicate and I had been fishing the same way there, and then a particular year we were allowed to use the boat not only just to put bait out, but people started prodding. So it does sound like I'm digressing, but there's a point to it. So people started going out to those spots, pushing prodding sticks in. Oh, it's a bit soft there, I'm not going to put a bait in there. And it's like, well, I ain't going to ignore 20 years of casting, feeling and the thing that I'm feeling on. So I'm going to carry on doing that because I know that's what works. And I think there's the same thing with a rig point of view. If you're using something and you're catching, you're going to carry on. If you look at it on the screen and then it's not catching, is that going to change your mind as to what you've done for the last 20 years successfully? That's where it starts frying your brain a little bit.
Well, I don't think it did change for Sean initially. When he saw that, he was like, well, I catch loads of it. And he, especially big uns, like he catches.
He's got a habit of doing that.
Just every trip he goes, he just catches big uns. It's a bit of a joke, really.
Could be that he's more lucky than the rest of us, I feel.
He doesn't, but he catches, but on that rig, whether he uses it exclusively or not, he catches a lot of fish on that rig. But I think now, combined with him seeing that, which must have put a seed of doubt in his mind, seeing him getting spat out, like he had one opportunity.
He did mention it.
He had one opportunity and he missed it.
He did say
you said one fish came in, didn't you?
He had one
fish. One fish came in And he didn't have two buddies trying to get in and eat something.
No, there was no
so all it
competition.
is a carp that ain't got to worry about how much of this scoff he's going to get, so he can just have a pick around. And people think that a carp is purposely ejecting your rig and it knows what it is. They don't know what it is. Their brain's half the size of my little finger. They know how to have sex once a year. They know how to get comfortable. They know how to feed. And all those 5 very simple things in life. It's the competition created between fish that nails them. And in my book, I don't really think, as long as your hook is bare from your hook bait, it really matters. If you're going to get a ton and a half of competition, let's look at linear fisheries. Some of those lakes got 2,500, 3,000 fish in them. Now, you know, it only takes 5 or 6 of them to get a bit rowdy on your hook bait, and you're going to catch them on anything. You could probably do it on a side hook boilie. But people lose sight of that, and they overcomplicate life for themselves, and I don't think
that is true. Because what the example that I'm giving, which is Tom Maker at Hookup in May, like the week before they spawned, using worms and casters with the fish going absolutely potty, compared to in the winter, fish literally coming in, like literally it was all day, you'd see them swimming past, and maybe 2 or 3 times a day they'd come in and have a small mouthful, and like there was one time he got lucky enough that small mouthful was the hook bait, but unlucky enough that he didn't get hooked, and there was no competition at all.
Yeah, so can I just, I'm going to go slightly off track here, but it is about a rig. I've been doing something of late, probably the last 18 months, and fishing a 2-foot zig or 3-foot zig over my baited area during the hours of in the day, because those carp are doing that, or they know where it is, and they keep coming back. It's not the right time to have a bite to eat. Not yet. Not yet. All the moon's not quite in the right place, and they're swimming over the top of your hook bait all day long. And you put something right in their path, you are infinitely more likely to get a bite than you are with something on the bottom. And it's a tactic I've used really successfully.
That's edgy, Chilly. I didn't have you down as a zig over the bait.
I've caught more fish on zigs than you could imagine. Now.
So do you think, Chilly, that once your bait, they clock where the bait is at a certain time and keep it in their mind to say?
I don't think they keep it in their mind. I think they keep near to it, so it is in their mind.
Yeah.
You know,
they're probably attracted to it. They know it's there. They just don't want to feed. And what you're getting is they attract it. Whatever you're putting in your baits attracts them to the area, but they're like, well, I'm not really hungry.
Yeah.
But then this thing's right in front of them. It's easy. I'll have it.
Yeah, I
think that's why
I chat to Kev. You know, we rarely talk about bait, but I didn't want using these smart liquid things, and I tried some of it in the margin. I crushed some boilies up. I used 10 and 15 mil boilies, and I crushed some boilies up in it, put some smart liquid in it. Now the day after, they'd gone pink. This cell, and I thought that's nice. That's going to be leaking off some juice. But I put it down in the margin, and I would say 24 hours later, there were still little bits coming off the bottom. And it was because that stuff carries things to the surface, and it just made a bait area is just a 2-dimensional spot on the bottom of a lake. If you start looking at it in a 3-dimensional way, then it opens up so many opportunities to catch fish. And but I think people will be surprised. And I mean, I don't know. I've never done any of this underwater filming, so I don't know how I feel about it. I never like fishing spots that have to be baited a bit beforehand, because that ain't my scene. None
of those times we've been baiting before.
Really good. I didn't know. So that's cool. I'm happy with that. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. Yeah. Believe me, I know the truth for some other things in this industry of ours, but we won't go there. Yeah, people look at it so 2-dimensionally, and there's a lot more to that you can do. And I kind of, I've learned a few lessons. That the zigs, what is it? It's just a bit of plastic attached to the back of my hook, in a kind of line. The line is sort of set up on the back on the tail end, but there's nothing fancy about it. It's just that carp is mobile when he's taking the bait. And that mobility in the fish on the bottom is infinitely more important than a fish grubbing around on the spot. Yeah. That's why my bait is spread over big areas, because a carp that has to move between mouthfuls is just infinitely more hookable than one that's just grubbing around on a spot. Yeah. But you've got to think what those fish are doing. They're not always, they don't go far from your baited area. They're not intelligent animals. They've got a memory retention of about 2 seconds, they reckon, don't they? Whatever queer scientist said that, he probably eats carp for breakfast or something. But it's I mean, there's loads of things, isn't it? But I know that they're drawn to areas. They'll stick around till it's time to feed, and while they're sticking around, you can put a hook bait in front of their face. Yeah. Sorry, I went on a bit.
There's no barometer as such, is there, in all of this? Because every situation, every day, the situation's completely changed. The light levels, temperatures, undercurrents, tows, competing fish.
Yeah.
You can't say one rig's hit this one and that works, and then change it to this rig, and the next day I caught loads. Well, it might have been completely something different which made them feed that day.
But are there rigs that you can use when they're not feeding as confidently that will hook them better?
Yes, for sure. The 360 rig is the ultimate one for that, and we'll prove that when we get out and do the underwater film in a few weeks' time.
You've heard it. You've heard it here.
I don't say this very often, but I absolutely, totally agree with.
Right. Whilst you're agreeing with me, I will agree with something you said a little while ago there, Chilly, about when there's competition. For me, my whole fishing is about we catch them when greed overtakes caution. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. Okay. So let's humanise it. A greedy human is way easier to take advantage of and to manipulate than a human that's very cautious about things. So so think of Black Friday or the next sale, okay? Yeah. When everybody's queuing up, ready to go storming into the supermarket or storming into Next, everybody around them is their competitors. They're all wanting. So
they want to get to the thing first.
So on a normal day in Tesco's or Next, you're just walking around and you're perusing. You've got your shopping list and you're perusing. Oh, I wanted that, I wanted that. Now, Tesco's might try and woo you with their little offer to try and get you to buy a TV out of the TV thing. And you could sit there and go, oh, £300, look on my phone. Do I want that? You've got time. Nobody's there like, I'm having that. Yeah. Black Friday, there's 20 other people making a beeline for the TV, so you're having it. And if there was a hook attached to that TV, Black Friday's the day that the human is going to get hooked, not the normal day when he hasn't got the other people.
And strangely, people have said we are infinitely more intelligent than a fish. Yeah.
So when greed overtakes caution, that's when you get your chance.
Yeah.
So if you look at match anglers, generally their rigs are not super fancy. They probably put the most emphasis on the pattern hook, depending on the type of bait they're presenting, and the length of the rig, depending on how they're fishing, whether it's fast flowing water or whatever. But in terms of mechanics of rigs, they're not thinking about flippers and it's not in their thing. It's about creating a feeding scenario where there's that many people stirring it up, fish stirring it up, and they get their opportunities. Now they will be getting ejected time and time again, but having something that resets them is able to then have its chance. So that's one of the reasons I like the Fluoro D-rig that Scott has much maligned, because it resets itself and it's there. Now, yes, it might not hook the very first fish that comes along, but the very first fish that comes along might not be the biggest fish in the lake or my target fish. It could quite possibly be a stocky, a smaller fish, the muggier one that isn't the bigger and whatever. So on the underwater footage, you don't have the benefit of hindsight or living in a parallel universe. So this obsession with underwater footage now is how quickly you catch the fish. Yeah. Like in a normal fishing situation, you'd cast out. If it took you 8 hours to get a bite, you'd think I was doing well. But now, if you haven't caught in an hour, you're twitchy because. Yeah. So my point would be is during that session, you might have still caught the same amount of fish. You just caught it within the first hour because your rig nailed it straight away. Yeah. Whereas it might have taken 8 hours to get the one bite, but because you've been ejected a few times, your chance of the big one that might not have turned up yet, or might be a little bit more cautious in the way it feeds, it might need a little bit more competition for it to. So for me, having the rig reset is a really big part of it. And then the way you feed is the most important thing. I think if you can feed in a way that you can build the swim to get that competition, and it's like on lakes with lots of fish, putting a real big dump of bait in can get you a bite because they just can't resist it. Fishing a little PVA bag on a really high stock lake of big uns, it's like, what? Is the risk worth the reward?
Yeah.
Whereas when there's a massive big bed of food and there's all these other people around you, fish around you, keep humanising them, shouldn't do it. Is when you said their brain's that big, I've made it to myself.
Didn't say I didn't talk about selling televisions, Louis.
Immediately thought about us.
But so it's I think it's that risk versus reward. I listened to a podcast, I think it was Tom Dove, he talked about the number of lines on a spot. And he said, like, if you're going to fish 3 lines all on one spot, you need more bait. Because if you're going to have 3 like tram lines over a tiny patch of bait, the risk and reward thing of all that line pressure and stuff. And I kind of agree with that. And I think it's, if you're going to fish 3 on a spot, put a load of food in there. So they just become so obsessed about food, they lose that caution. And it's risk and reward. Look at big prey, like. A lion ain't going to go chasing a bunny rabbit round. The risk and reward of being exposed out there, running around after a rat, the reward's not worth it. They're gonna save their dropping their guard when the reward's big and juicy. And
no, I mean,
I'm not sure about that analogy.
You've come up with some absolute belters though there. Spreading your bait out. It gives you a chance to explore that baited area. I've never done the 3 on. I don't fish waters like the places they use that kind of tactic, but I'll put 2 on a spot. Very often that's the way that I fish. I'll start off with 1 smack in the middle, 1 maybe 5 yards to the left or the right or whatever, and you can sort of move things around from there. And it's like fishing within a spot. You've got to change things around. And the rig, as I say, I don't think I only use 2 rigs, and that's in every single environment, unless it's a zig or I'm fishing on the surface.
A lot of the time when you see somebody get done on underwater footage, it's because the direction that the fish approached it. Simple as that.
Or the speed.
Yeah, like the direct, if depending on which direction they are, will impact when the lead comes into contact.
Yeah.
And that makes a massive, it can literally just be look of the draw. If you can't manipulate, like if you're from your swim and you're casting out, your lead is always, unless you fish a helicopter rig, your lead is always going to be there. Your rig's going to then sort of always land that side. So generally, fish won't approach from your line side. Generally, like when you see underwater footage, they're normally coming in from the other side. So you are kind of like, that's why I think something like a washing line method, where you sort of reverse it, and the fish are actually coming in from a different direction. Who knows if you did underwater footage of the same presentation on a washing line compared to the standard, maybe you'd, with the same exact rig presentation, you would find a different conversion ratio purely because you're changing the angle of which they approach it compared to the lead. That hasn't been done, I don't think.
No.
Maybe that's something.
I mean, to be fair, when we did our, it was a different spot and stuff, but it was with a 3-6. I mean, this is like you can literally go round in circles. But your point about the obsession with, catch it like pickups to hook ratio and looking at underwater footage, and if they're picking it up and spitting it out and getting away with it, your rig's bad. I think what people need to think about a lot more is your conversion ratio to hooked to landed. Like if we take what we did with the underwater challenge, Mark's using a blowback rig, very, very standard rig, but a good solid rig. In the space of 12 minutes, he got picked up 4 times, and it was only on the 4th time that he actually converted the pickup into a landed fish. But like you'd have never given a hoot about if you'd have caught that fish 10 minutes earlier. Like you wouldn't have ever known about it.
We had a bit of criticism.
But he's landed the fish. If he was, for example, if he was using a different rig, say a really, really short rig with a straight point, in my opinion, a really, really straight short rig with a straight point, you've got more chance of losing that fish because of the mechanics of how it's
too finitum for me. It's absolutely too finitum. I mean, there's so much more than a rig involved in catching a carp. I don't want to be, carpy geezer, putting my spod down the same hole. because you get your bait in one area.
That's
wanna
what I
spread
say,
that
Chilly,
bait.
when I'm spomming.
Do
Yeah,
well,
I
it's
wanted it
cold.
to spread. I
copied,
wanted it
geezer.
to be spread out.
No.
Yeah,
I meant
yeah.
that.
I'm getting a movement
I may
between
well be.
mouthfuls.
I may well be shit
60,
at spodding,
70
but
yards movement.
It pays off for me. If it is my uselessness at spodding, then I pat myself on the back because that catches me so many more fish, and there's more things, like I say, you can do with the baited area and rigs. I don't use a 360 anymore. You know, the two idiots that started off the down trend of it in the when was it? The early 2000s, wasn't it? I stopped using it for some reason. The two idiots. Anyway, I won't go into that. And I just went back to my stiff link pop-ups, and you know, I use our little chod rigs as the up section, and 30-pound illusion as the boom. And all I got to do if I want to fish over a silt, if that lead, which I've talked about the conversations I have with it before, you know, it's a bit. When it comes out, I know I've got to push that bead up a little bit further, so I get that presentation. That's all you've got to do. You ain't got to say, "Oh, it's silt, so I've got to use a longer hook link or something." That's a load of rubbish. If you set your lead up, it's the lead setups that count.
I guess that depends on it if you're using a helicopter rig or like a.
That's what I'm saying. It's your lead setup that catches you the fish. I mean, there's another thing in that. I'm sorry, Scott, I'm blasting off here, but you know, people think they put a PVA bag on and you cast it out and everything. You know, it's going to sink quicker because of the PVA bag. No, it doesn't. It sinks slower. It sinks quite a bit slower. So you can present that bait on silt, and you're going to get good presentation.
In conclusion, I think we can all agree that Scott's wrong, that the fluorocarbon D-rig isn't that bad a rig. It's just based on 2 sessions that he's fished with Sean. Sean's made that rig look bad to him. So thanks, Sean.
Everybody don't stop using the fluorocarbon D, but maybe think about.
Yeah.
I've got about 20
I agree that it's shit.
You asked for an unpopular opinion, and my opinion is there's much better rigs out there. However, you know, you can't take for granted everything that you see. Situations, scenarios, everything else makes a difference on that. But for me, the way I think rig mechanics work, I want the bait to separate the hook. I want the hook to move. The Fluoro doesn't give me any of that, and that's why I don't like it. I'm not saying it's. I did say it was a shit rig.
Confidence
but
is
it catches
90%
loads
of
of
it,
fish, doesn't it? And you get 20 fish feeding or 20 lions next to one rabbit who's got a shit rig attached to it. You know what I mean? then you will catch one. But you know, the point is, I think if you get to a situation where you've only got one fish feeding very lightly or something, I think you've got better chances of generating a pickup from something that's got a little bit more.
How do you know when you've only got one fish?
Well, you don't, do you? And you're never going to know that.
You've got to try, and that's why I would say you fish and get the best from the baited area that you put out there. Try different places to put bait.
And that's why I said you can't look at what you see on the screen and take that as gospel. You have to use your experience from angling to sort of determine what you want to do.
I think the things on the screen, I have to be brutally honest, I don't watch them. I'm not really interested, because the commentators have got their own personal ideas about what those carp are doing. And everyone's will be different. You know, I've heard ones like, look, he's looking for the rig. Well, it's not. It was just a big fat carp turning around in the swim and going away from the bait that you gave him. You know, he didn't want to say that. He wanted to make it. It was like, you know, it was just about to split the atom in a different way. This carp.
It's interesting viewing. It's good to watch, and I'm sure you can learn bits. Every little bit that's done, people can take their own bits from it and learn bits and bobs. But it's not that rig. That's the one. Everyone needs to use that. Different situation, different days, different rigs.
Every single fishing situation is different.
Totally agree.
But confidence is the thing. Confidence with the fish feeding, and confidence in you putting out there what you want.
I can't stand sitting there along my bed chair not happy with every kind of concept of what I've done. I'd have to get up and sort it out. You know.
No, it's good. It's good.
Nice. Well done, Scott.
Yeah, like that one. Time to throw another grenade now then. So, Lou, what's your unpopular opinion?
So it kind of stays on the rig. Well, it does stay on the rig theme that Scott set there. Mine would be that the opinion that using a sharpened hook catches you more fish or gives you or converts more opportunities. Now, in theory, to me, that makes sense. Why would you not want the hook to be as sharp as possible? You know, if you know, like if you're a bird of prey with raptors or whatever, you want your claws to be as sharp as possible. Or if we're in a sword fight, I fancy my chances if your sword's blunt and mine's sharp. But why are you mocking me?
If I've got a 6 ounce lead behind my sword.
But yeah, I get what you mean.
So
what's the?
But I've not seen any evidence that supports the theory. Like, we've watched a lot of underwater footage now. I've watched so much, and there's lots of people that use sharpened hooks. They get done just as many times as people that don't use the sharpened hooks. And in certain circumstances, they're getting done more. So I'll go to one of the Corda underwater films. They were using sharpened hooks, getting done at the Norton Disney one, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then they swapped to the shot on the hook rig, which incorporated one of the hooks that wasn't sharpened, because it's from the non-sharpened range of their hooks. And then they started nailing fish because of the shot on the hook. So they got more conversions because they changed the mechanics of the rig than they did because they had a sharpened hook against a non-sharpened. So, like I say, I haven't seen evidence. Now, in theory, it makes sense to me that you would catch more chances with a sharpened hook. I just haven't seen evidence. Evidence that I know from working with Rob Hughes for many years is the weight of the lead makes a massive difference. Once you get to 4 ounces or above, he can't lift the lead off the bottom with his, if he puts the rig into his finger, as soon as he gets to 4 ounces, that hook is being pulled into his finger with a non-sharpened hook. So for me, I would very rarely, if ever, use anything under 4 ounces unless really dictated to.
I've seen so many different things on that, Louis. It was in the magazine feature. I should have ripped the page out and brought it with me today. And this guy's a very high-profile angler. I'm surprised he didn't get the sack from wherever he was. And he says in the article, I throw 3 or 4 of my hooks away. And I sharpen the rest of the hooks in my thing. Well, like, for a kick-off, I can't imagine what that company are doing for hooks and how good they are, because I'd never buy one. And secondly, I've never, ever looked at any hook that I've taken out of the packets in the last 21 years and thrown one away. Ever. I put every single hook on, and if I've done my part of the equation right, I'll catch a carp. And the other thing is, people, that hook's done, dusted. One cast, that's it. You ain't going to put it on again.
That's one of the main reasons I had the opportunity a few years ago. I did Jason Hayward a favour with his hook sharpening business. We're sorting some hooks and stuff out for him. And as a return, he said, if you ever want some hooks doing for free, send me some. My first thought was, that would be a shot. And then I thought, well, it doesn't suit my fishing. Like, one, I'm not a very good caster, so if I miscast and I hit the wrong bit of debris on the way back in, the point's done, and I'm just going to be going through rigs like they're going out of fashion. And also, like I said, I do think you're going to be getting done. That's just the nature of fishing. And if you're fishing, I like to fish on hard, clean areas, gravel spots, and that. I just can't. I just think if I had a razor sharp needle point like you see some of these people doing, it would just be playing on my mind that it's silverfish. You see on the underwater footage, these rigs waft about as fish. That's for me. Like, again, I'm not fishing to catch 100 carp. I'm fishing to catch the one big one or whatever that I'm targeting or hoping to catch. So that confidence, like you're saying, you're sitting there. I'd be forever paranoid thinking I haven't had a bite. It's bite time. I haven't had a bite. It's probably because my hook point's been done over. Whereas I know by using a decent quality out of the packet hook, they're so sharp that with 4 ounces of lead, you ain't doing anything with that. It's going in. But they're not to the point where you've got such a critical amount that it dinks something and it's done. And some high profile anglers that were very pro hook sharpening have said in recent times that they are coming away a bit from using sharpened hooks a bit.
I think that little old lady, 60-year-old Chinese lady, sat in her little place, knows infinitely more how to make a hook than I do. And she sits there and puts them in a little packet and looks after them. They'll do for me. She's done me a favour, I reckon.
I think, like you said on the last podcast, unless you've used something, you can't have an opinion on it. I used to sharpen hooks a lot. I stopped doing it. I've definitely not seen.
And he fishes for England.
And
well, he did.
Yeah, did.
He retired.
Did. And I've not seen any change. And on that note of like match fishing and stuff and like high level competition fishing, you'd have thought if every single bite counts and if they get you more bites, like we're not Matt carp match anglers are not afraid of tying rigs. Like, we will have an awful lot of rigs tied. So it wouldn't matter if you had to change one for every fish because you'd have them all tied up. But I can guarantee you that at the World Championships, where you've got the best anglers from every single country who are all like every single bite, because most of these are like over the period of time, they're won by like grams, not kilos. They're won by grams. Every single bite counts. If it made a difference, surely those guys who are the best in their countries would all be doing it. But none of them are. They all use out the packet hooks.
Well, being a world champion, as I still am, because they've never held that competition again, me and Lee Jackson won it, and we never sharpened a damn hook, and I haven't done it in any other environment either.
But
I used to do it, I lie. I used to go conger eel fishing, I called it. I never called it fishing. All I wanted to do was catch conger eels as a kid with the Bristol Sea Anglers, and you used to get these big 10-0 hooks home the night before you go, squeezing your rigs together and that. I used to get the old man's file out and give it. I'm sure I ruined most of them, but I caught a few conger at my time, but they don't work for carp fishing.
But again, it's down to confidence. If people are sharpening their hooks and they think it's making a difference, then carry on, because that's going to catch you more fish. That
it's confidence.
Yeah,
you're looking out there at that, and
but yeah, it's something that when I see somebody preach about how much of a difference it makes, there isn't actually any scientific evidence that anybody can produce that it does make a difference. In theory, should make a difference, but I've not, and that's what I'm saying. All I say is I've not seen the evidence.
You're going to get a challenge now. Somebody's going to challenge you. They're going to take you to a water that they own or something. They fish all the time and know everything about it.
I'm happy to be wrong. Like, I'm happy for show me the evidence. I'll change.
You ain't wrong. You're not wrong.
I'll change if somebody can show me loads and loads of evidence of sharpened hooks consistently turning fish quicker. Then I'd consider changing. But I just, like I say, I've not seen it. So so that's my unpopular opinion, Dino.
There's not many crap hooks out there anyway now. So
no,
every company you could get a hook out of the packet and
you're going to get found out pretty quickly.
Go back 20 years ago, it's a little bit different.
So.
There's a bit of shit out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now there's loads of good stuff.
H, what about you? Unpopular opinion. What you throwing in?
So mine would be that a spod mix or like a mix of bait is never the best option. Never the best option. So you are always gonna. There's always gonna be a bait, like one bait, or maybe occasionally a combination of two baits. But generally, I'd say one bait. That if you can find what that one bait is, that will outfish everything, no matter what your mix is.
How do you find it out?
How do I? But that's the thing. So you either find it out by trial and error of you. The thing is with a mix,
underwater camera, send your boat out and have a look.
With a mix, you're hedging your bets.
Yep.
Right. So if you don't know what that bait is, that's giving you lots of options. But there will be probably someone on that lake, or there is going to be a one bait that will outfish your mix of baits. It's just getting to what that is. So I would sooner, when I go to a venue, like fish either one bait on one rod, one bait on another rod, or go in all on one bait. If that doesn't work on that session, then I'll write it off. Next session, I'll try something, and then eventually you'll find something that they just absolutely love, and they won't be able to.
You're trying to
resist.
You're trying to pinpoint it.
Again, I'll talk about in my competition fishing. I've never ever won a match fishing. No, I've never ever I've won the odd match. I've never ever won one fishing with more than two baits.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but if you say you have one spot with one bait and another with a different bait, and that one produces more, how do you know it's not the spot?
Well, then you try the bait that's working,
and then you swap them over
on the other. Yeah,
but then you've got old bait that they didn't eat on that spot.
I'm not saying that you will know what it is, and I'm not saying that you're gonna be able to find that out straight away.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, you can either hedge your bets and you might catch a few, or you can go all in on one and it'll be shit or bust. But if it's really good, you're going to have a beano, you're going to have,
Yeah.
and you will be in a better position than all of the other anglers on that lake, as long as they're not using the same bait. But generally, like on a lake, if everyone's using the same, you could find something different to that that would outperform that. That everyone's
I
using.
agree that you find the one that they want to eat and you've got to catch more. Lewis, for example, if you put a roast dinner in front of him, yeah, he likes an analogy. You're not going to catch him on a Brussels sprout or a carrot, are you? You're going to get him on a potato and a bit of meat.
Yeah.
So,
but he's going to go for the bit that he likes first.
Yeah.
And it depends how far he wants to move to eat it. And that's the one you've got. Hang on a second, it might sound a little bit funny. Have you ever seen a spod empty that's got it's got hemp, it's got pellets, it's got crushed boilies, it's got smaller boilies and a few bigger boilies. Let's chuck in a few chickpeas and a peanut or two or something like that.
I've got old school now.
And then this spawn goes out, boof, hits the surface. You say you've got a couple of hook baits you want to bait up over, in 12 foot of water. The boilies will go. The slightly smaller boilies will go. The smaller items will go woof, woof, and it spreads your free offerings out for miles. There's one thing people forget about is the undertow in lakes.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll all witness it with the bow in your line. But the still waters are anything but still. And that's why when I bait up, I put one object in, and then I try and adjust if I can, if my line's bowing like that. I think it's going. But then on the Yateley car park, I learned this donkey, 2000. There was 3 or 4 ways the water would go when you fished on the side of this island. And it was crazy, and but that's one thing I try and make people aware of when they're baiting up with a spod with multiple baits, is that in deeper water it just flushes it.
But I think,
miles.
I think, I guess to sort of add a bit more to my point, it's like when you're certainly when you're coming into the winter, I think they work all year round. But like natural baits, like maggots or casters or whatever. A lot of people will start to add them into their mix, but like if you're going to take some maggots, like use maggots, use just maggots, because that's what they want. Yeah. You're putting them in your mix because it's like, oh, they want some maggots now. No, put just the maggots out.
Oh, 100% agree.
And that's like, in my opinion, that's the same with boilies, that's the same with corn, that's the same with like pellet, anything like that, pellet, exactly. There will always be something that they want more than anything else. And if you know what that is, that's it. You're catching more than everyone else.
So having that, like you say, that buffet effect, but being able to go back and go, well, the vol-au-vent's gone well.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But you don't know.
Whoever said that? Whoever said the vol-au-vent?
It's all about the 1980s, mate. Get on the vol-au-vents.
You got cheese and pineapple
on little sticks. You know it. Wow, food for thought, definitely.
I like what you've done there, Dean.
Yeah.
Like that.
Hey. I like it. That's good presenting.
It's taken him 40 minutes to get that one in.
Chilly, coming to you now, mate. What's your unpopular opinion? I know there's many.
I've sat here, and we've had 3 already, and we discussed maybe 4 or 5 beforehand, just very lightly. And by the time my head was spinning, because I've probably got 100 things I could sort of say. I don't want to appear like some narky old git. But I think the biggest thing for me, and something that I know I've proved to myself, is a proper load of old man's tackle. It is the colour of your hook bait. Now, I know it's all born on, a lot of it's a confidence thing, but a lot of it comes from fashion. Well, I was fishing at Manor before it became what it is
Chilly.
today.
So what's your opinion that the colour doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, sorry. No, I don't think it matters. You put it in the right place, connected to something that it will that it will maybe want to eat, then you're going to catch it. That's my theory. And we're up in Manor before it became the massive complex it is today, when the gravel workers were still working.
Is it Manor at Linear?
Linear, yeah. There was a lot of guys coming down from Manchester and Liverpool, places like that, from the north, and all of them. You were, I mean, a lot of them, well, all of them were using yellow hook baits. And there was
I
one
was
guy,
probably one of them.
There was one guy responsible for it, which was Frank Warwick.
Yeah.
And this is not having a go at Frank. I've known Frank for donkey's years, but it was those people. All of them used yellow hook baits.
yellow wanger.
And me and Reg Bampton, Richard Howell, the fourth member of the band, he and I were using Activate in 18 and 15 mil sizes. A very dour coloured bait. Does lighten up a little bit in the water, but I know it's a very attractive bait to fish.
Strangely enough,
Yeah.
that was probably what we were using. We were probably using Active, and we
Okay.
were using the yellow ones.
Okay,
On the top.
well, everybody, it looked like the majority of people were catching because of the yellow. Yeah, and a lot of them were using corn, mate. That's what they were. I saw them putting it in the little spods of the day, you know, with a bit of pellet mix in the top, and I saw them doing it. So they were trying to match the hatch, and it looked like the majority of them caught all the fish. Well, me and Reg caught everything in there. You know what I mean? With both the big fish, and it, you know, it just annoyed me. And since then, I have tried to do everything in my power.
Sorry, I annoyed you.
No, it's all right, mate. But it's a good thing because that gave me something to try and achieve, something to prove. And everywhere I've gone ever since, I used dull hook baits. I ended up using bits of either a zig thing that we do with the main line, the toppers, or a bit of yellow plastic on top. And I use yellow because that's normally the first one you come to in a tackle shop or whatever, and it's the first one in the screw down bottle on the thing with the toppers in it. So it normally ends up being yellow, but I'm not really bothered. And I think the biggest example, when I went down to Ashmead in 2009, well 2008, I went down there for the winter. I had a winter check. I didn't think I was going to catch anything, to be honest with you, but I did really, really well. And I chatted to a guy there. He was quite well known in the game then, and he was writing a bit and doing stuff. And he told me the worst colour a hookbait could ever be is orange. It just doesn't work in most of the waters he'd ever fished. He was quite serious, looking me in the eye and everything. I don't know how I didn't pee my pants looking at him.
I love orange.
But yeah,
I
it's
love orange.
unbelievable.
I had one or two on
I wouldn't use it as a boilie. I would use it as a colour of that bit of plastic on top. I don't know if carp feed by sight. I don't believe they do. They're armed with 54 receptors in their mouths, and I know that because of a scientist that worked at Guildford University, who ultimately, as a point to note, created a bait that stimulated 52 of those 54 things in its mouth, and he never, ever caught a carp on it, ever. Yeah, I can imagine walking in a room with every smell in the world. You'd come out vomiting, like projectiling everywhere. But he was an interesting guy, so I know about all their receptors.
here's a
But I
question.
think they use that to find their food predominantly.
So
Their eyes are in the wrong place to look at the bottom of the lake anyway. Their eyes are there only for protection, which is from the side and above and in front.
So, is there a colour hook bait you wouldn't use, or would you be? So, if I said to you, right, Chilly, for the next season,
Yeah.
you could only use blue hook baits
Yeah, okay.
or purple hook baits.
I'll get some blue corn, plastic corn. Look, I can put onto the top of the boilie that I'm using, and I do that on my little dumbbell bottom bait rig on a long
So
air.
there's
I've got
not
a bit
a colour.
of
There's
plastic.
not a colour that you wouldn't use.
No, not at all. If
And
I
you
know
wouldn't-
if I put it in the right place, that carp's going to
And your
pick up.
confidence wouldn't change.
It
at
wouldn't
all.
change, not in the slides. Well, anyway, down at
Kev,
Ashmead,
making
the
some
first
purple one.
the first thing I did was went back to my motor, and in my little bag in the back there, I got a variety of kit that I might need. Took out a little bag of orange toppers from my hook baits, and I carried on fishing. And yeah, I caught a few of them. And after one of the worst winters I can ever remember, the lake froze 3 times on the 27th of January. I went down there and caught a 53-pound mirror on an orange top bottom bait. And I don't think there's anything, you know, colour doesn't matter. The people will say it because they've got confidence. They've caught fish doing it. And as I always say to anybody, if you've got confidence in, do it. I have changed my hook baits colours countless times in the past. Countless. Did different things all the time. Every time I recast to that spot, put a different rig, a different colour, and every time you get a bite if you've done it right.
I want to come to Harry on this now,
I am chomping at the
because
bit here.
I know how well a certain colour did
Oh,
on
anyway,
the challenge
time's up.
underwater.
No,
What's your
like-
take on that?
So I think for your fishing,
Yeah.
your type of fishing, like not having a colour that matters is like I agree with, because all you're thinking about is getting them feeding the way that you want them to feed.
Yeah.
So you will just greed all over, take caution, and they'll eat everything in sight. That's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Right. We have seen too many times on underwater footage, especially in the spring, but I think generally like sort of all year round as well, like pink, they beeline to it. They just beeline to it more so than any other colour. We've seen it on our underwater footage. We've seen it. We've seen it on. We've seen it on other like on quarter ones, on the typography stuff. You see it time and time again, and to the point where I think it is impossible to ignore the amount of evidence that is out there to suggest that colour does matter.
Catch many more carp.
There's a lot.
I mean, to me, I know because of the scientists that I knew and several other people that worked down at Spod College and all the rest of it, a carp's eyes aren't there to find food. They are there for its defence. It can only see out there and in front of it. That's all it can see. Okay?
But
I know it's what do they call it, monocular or whatever.
But this is the thing, right? They can only see what's out in front.
He's looking at the video, but like I said before, it's like a big old carp's come in, turn around. It's someone's interpretation of what's happening.
So they can't. I agree. They can't see like what's right in front of them.
A 30-pound carp can't see between 8 and 10 inches in front of his face.
But especially in clear water where they can see further. That I think it's like it's stuff on that end of the spectrum, pink, red. That
We've
sort
got
of thing.
to do
We
this,
don't really
Harry.
use people don't really use red hook baits. I think they probably perform in a similar way to pink, but no one really uses them. They can spot that from a longer distance, and so they then.
So will a bed of pink boilers work?
Yeah, but that would you would have then.
You'd have nothing.
You take away the target. I understand.
You've not
but
got
I still believe that's a confidence thing. I do not believe.
But there is a lot of underwater footage that shows the
we're
pink
going to have to do.
they make
Harry,
the
we've got
beeline.
to do this.
But then
I'm not trying to get. I'm not trying to stand on Pritchard's feet here, but this is a challenge.
But it can go the
I
other way.
throw the gauntlet down.
Because if they're getting battered on pink because everybody's seen all this underwater footage, then it can go the other way. There is an underwater film that's coming out, not from us, but from another company that's coming out later on this year where somebody was using pink and the fish were actually
maybe it's because I change it all the time.
Situation, scenario, it's there again. No two things are going to be the same.
No, but I do believe. I believe that more often than not, if you've got something that they pick out and can see, you're going to get a quicker bite and then potentially more bites.
But many
don't. It's fine. It's fine, Chilly. You catch loads.
I've got some at home. I've got some cells.
And you'll probably catch more big uns than what I would.
No, what you'll do,
the first one
you'll get a call off of me in about a month's time, and then I'll be a crawling, snivelling mess on the end of the phone, apologising to you.
Many years ago, there was a DVD made called Fresh Thinking the Carp, and it was made by a woman called Moira Mann, who was a BBC and Discovery Channel documentary filmmaker. She wasn't an angler. She filmed whales, sharks, all these sort of things. But for whatever reason, she decided to make a documentary studying carp. Brian Jarrett was involved. Dave Lane was involved. There may have been others, but they're the two that I can remember being involved. They did all sorts of different tests about sight. So they had divers in the water looking back out to see what silhouettes and stuff looked like from inside the water. They did taste tests where they had different things in tights that they'd touch the water with and see which way the fish went and stuff. They did a sight test with plastic corn, different colours of plastic corn, and they went for red every single time. Now, obviously, you're limited to the fish that they're using for the thing, but those particular fish in that test environment, literally, they had every colour of plastic corn lined out, and every time beeline. So then they took the colours outside of the fish tank and put them against the glass. So there's no chance of smell being a factor, and they just still come and headbutt the tank.
Okay, so what we're doing is talking about very naive fish.
Yeah, for sure. But it's
haven't
that
been
natural,
hooked on a red thing.
But that natural instinct without any being battered on red for their life. There was definitely in that particular film that she made evidence that you would think, okay.
If I want to get a quick bite, if you believe that, then I'm not going to argue.
But likewise, she did it with flavours, So she had all these different things, and crushed garlic in the tights was the thing that they just kept going for. Crushed garlic, crushed garlic, crushed garlic. And garlic's a fantastic additive in the in bait. I use that I
Oh
use
yeah,
a lot.
I've had it in bait.
So yeah, you know, I think
it's interesting. Isn't
yeah, I think I would disagree on the colour thing, only because, like I said, on the sharpened hook things, where I haven't seen any evidence that it makes a difference. With the colour, I've seen evidence that I would.
Fair enough with that, you know, but I mean, there's loads of cliches I could use of my experiences in life that would make a little bit of fun of that, but I don't want to. But they are naive fish. They've never been fished for. I mean, the fish I fish for, most of the time, are fish that have lived their lives under the cosh. Yeah. And I think it's important. And, you know, though I don't change my rigs at all, I don't sharpen my hooks, I do change the colour of that bit of plastic now and again, just to keep my confidence levels that it don't matter what I do, I'm going to get a bite.
Sight has to have.
So you change it not to get a bite. You change it just to be like, it doesn't actually matter. I'm going to get the bite.
That's why I believe it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, through my experiences, that's the only thing you can talk to people through.
Because you're still getting bites.
Because I'm still getting bites.
Yeah.
Whatever colour I've used.
Yeah.
Sight must have some bearing. Now, I'm not talking about colour or anything like that, but zigs work because they see it. Surely, because going back to zigs before we had zig liners and before people put juice on it and
we can get even better, can't we?
And all that kind of stuff.
Lewis talked about them looking at silhouettes and colours from the bottom. And Laney, I've known Laney for years, always looks up. He always says all they see is black above them, and that's what I believe. And I've changed all my colours on my zigs. Everybody tells me to use yellow or black. And I use every colour we got. That brown, I've got loads on that dull brown colour.
Well, I think that's because it's a very good colour.
Yeah, but I think those things show up visibly to a carp as he's swimming along.
So, regardless of colour, sight has some bearing.
Yeah, they can see.
Because
they're not
they
blind.
have to. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but what Chilly's saying is they can see, but maybe Chilly's saying they don't see in colour. They're just seeing in black and white.
Yeah, and I'm not.
That they can see the colour, but if they want to eat it, they're going to eat it.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Sight has a bearing because that's why they take a zig.
Yeah.
Because going back to years ago when people started messing around with flip flops and cutting a bit of foam off and all that kind of stuff, they weren't squeezing juice or anything like that, and it was purely something. And it was at night. It was black. You know, and whether that was to do with the moon and the silhouette against it or whatever, at some point they see something and they go for it. However, they get so close to it and then they can't see it because you're right, the eyes are back here. And then what are they relying on then? As they get towards that zig,
opening the mouth.
But also, do you think that may be some of the reason why you lose a few fish on zigs because it might not go anywhere?
Look, when you're floater fishing, they miss your hook. It's not because they're spooking off the hook bait. It's just because they've literally, there's some food.
Some of them roll over backwards and they're trying to take it. They just can't see the damn
they've got that close now. Now they've lost the sight of it because they're so close.
All the time. Well, my point is, sight has some bearing.
Yeah.
And colour.
You can't, that's without question. It's just,
Yeah, we can't ask a fish, do you see colour?
No.
Do you like pink more than
I've often asked him. His name's Charlie Daly, actually. He's a lovely, lovely bloke. He was a math scientist and at CFAS and all that. And the things he told me about carp and the things he tried to do on that knowledge that just wouldn't work. He overstimulated the poor things. But, you know, he was the one who told me about colour and that.
But I will chop and change colours because I think it can make a difference because I look at
well, maybe I'm very, very lucky and I change it exactly the right time. Put a green
skill.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Experience and skill.
I kind of like that. No, can we finish on that note? Chilly is skillful.
If you look at lure fishing and you look at trout fishing, there's a massive input on changing of colour of lure. And
they're a predator. Yeah. They're a predator. They're a different fish.
Carp are predatory.
They'll sieve fry out of the water. I caught 32-pound pike a long time ago, and it just spewed up mountains of tiny little pike. But that's not grubbing around on the bottom looking for stuff. That's swimming through the water, swimming through a shoulder, and they open their mouth. It causes a massive vortex, and all those little fishy go tumbling down his throat. That's what they do with Daphne and stuff like that. But it's, you know, I just think there's just too much in all of this, and it just takes the fun away. People sit there wearing about it.
But maybe that's the thing. You don't want to. It doesn't matter to you because you'd rather not worry about the colour.
I'm a very simple.
But maybe that's it. You don't want to sit there and worry about it because you just want to sit there and be confident that
question
your
then round the
boilies are going to work
table.
for you.
On a rig that I'm confident in with the line.
Chilly's just said he doesn't really fish free on a spot. I don't really know whether Scott does, but Harry certainly does, and I do, and Dean, I think you do as well.
Yeah.
My opening generally on a lake would be to go in with 3 different colours that I've got confidence in. So yellow, white, and pink. That would be the first 3 colours that I'd start. All 3. Sorry, did I say yellow?
You said yellow, white, and pink.
Yeah, orange, white, and pink. I don't use yellow. Sorry, orange, white, and pink. And then if I start to catch on, if one colour appears to be the better colour, then I would change all 3 over to that colour. Is that how you would?
So I used to.
Or are you just going in on all pink now?
Yeah, nowadays
very
I
pink,
do,
doesn't it?
nowadays I do go.
See, one
all
instant
out on
wouldn't
pink.
prove it
I
to
might.
me. That would have to happen over 5 or 6 sessions for me to think that one colour had something to do with something.
Yeah, no, I'll be
one
like 2 or
night,
3 bites.
yeah.
2 or 3 bites if it's
I
like.
mean, if you're
if
doing
it's-
it on 3 different spots as well, that might not be the one.
No,
That might
I'm
not be the
talking
one,
about
and you
3
put
on
that
one spot.
Oh, sorry.
And,
yes,
and what I will do as well is I will mix I'm happy to recast the rods, so it's not like pink has to be on the right.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's because they're always taking the right hand rod. And if it was one colour that was consistently working, then when I went back the next week, all 3 rods would be on that colour.
Really?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm like now
that
I've
decisive.
Yeah, I'd be like, right, I've now I don't want that to be a thing playing in my mind. I know
I think it's wonderful because we've all got different views,
following
and I
week,
think that's the battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's
No,
got a different
I
view.
think generally, again, my opinion, but I think if you're on a venue, I'm not fishing lakes that are mega pressured, so they're not like they've been done to death on any colour. But if I go there one week and multiple bites are on that one colour, I'd be happy for the next few months to just concentrate on that colour and then not worry about, that's out the equation now. I'm not worrying about that. I've got a hook bait that I know works. It could be the flavour rather than the colour, but it's working. Get that out. That's done. Confidence is good now. If I'm not catching, it's not because the hook bait's wrong. It's because my location.
Whatever the reason, and that word
Yeah.
again, whatever the reason, if you're confident in it, that's what you got to do.
I think it'd be interesting to see in the comments below on this video whether people agree with Chilly that colour doesn't matter, or whether they agree with the rest of us that we think that colour does make a difference. So comment below, I reckon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
Does colour make a difference on the hook bait?
I think it does.
Nice.
God, I'm gonna
That's your
look-
comment.
Dean.
Yeah. Cheers for your 2 penny.
Thanks, Dean.
Chirped up now.
But guys, if you want to interact more with sort of topics like this, if you head over to Facebook, you can become a member of the official Fox community group. Just get on there, search that, you will find the page.
What's it called, Dean?
It is called the official Fox community group, the Syndicate.
The Syndicate.
So get over there, become a member. You'll have myself or one of the admins add you as a member, and then you'll hear lots of things off these guys because they are on the actual page answering some of your questions as well. which is
Yeah,
really cool.
we get on there and answer quite a lot of questions, like anything sort of fishing related. If you want some advice, there'll be someone on there to give you advice. And also, like we want to celebrate in everyone's captures. So if you've caught some nice fish, share them on that. We want to know if you're out fishing, what you're doing.
It don't matter how you caught them.
It doesn't matter how you caught them.
Or
No,
what colour hook
absolutely.
bait you had
Don't
on.
tell us how you caught them.
But,
As long as you're happy,
it
you
is.
know how with
That's
the
what it's
fish,
about.
it doesn't matter.
But
yes.
we'll be if people want to ask questions that we can answer on this podcast, ask them on the Syndicate, and that's where all of the questions that we answer in future podcasts, that's where they're all going to be, on the Syndicate Fox's official community. So get over there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great community. Get over there, become a member, and you can get a lot more involved. So that sort of wraps up podcast 2. I just want to say a massive thank you for the guests on this one, and there'll be plenty more to come from the Always Carp Fishing podcast. Thanks for watching.